we posed the question, who is in a worse position after a wild card exit? The Dallas Cowboys or the Philadelphia Eagles? And there are probably plenty of reasons for either side of the coin, Reg.
Yeah, obviously both teams, real embarrassing wild card exits after winning quite a few games this season. The Eagles, a lot of their games throughout the course of this year looked fairly fraudulent, right? They did not look like the Eagles that you had seen the last few years. Obviously, they weren't consistent. Defense consistently was bad. I imagine that a lot of people looked at these Cowboys and said they did not beat anybody of real note throughout the course of the season. The idea that they beat up on lesser teams, and ultimately they come out and literally nothing goes right. They do nothing right over the course of a game versus the Green Bay Packers, and a Green Bay Packers team who came into the wild card round just, with house money, right? They snuck their way in, youngest team in the league. I'm sure you heard that 1,000 times over this weekend. And ultimately, they handle your team up and down when it comes to actual play, when it comes to, coaching, all those things. So how do we want to break this down? Do we want to kind of, go position by position, maybe not position by position, unit by unit? Do we want to look at these, kind of contractually where they're out? What hits your heart first when you want to compare who's the most down bad, I guess?
I think unit by unit is where you can go, because I think there's some fun compare and contrast there. Because I think that, in terms of young players versus veterans, expiring deals on certain units, and then just overall level of play and lack of development from some specific areas of those different units, it's kind of interesting.
Okay, so with that being the case, let's start. The one that immediately comes to mind is this Eagles defense versus this Cowboys defense. With your Cowboys, how do you feel about this defense? Because they looked absolutely atrocious in that game versus the Packers, and there had been some up and down with them throughout the course of the season. A lot of conversation about the inability to stop the run. Jonathan Hankins is no longer under contract. Obviously, Stephon Gilmore not under contract. You will get Trayvon Diggs back. Huge. Michael Parsons is going to get his money. You have him. That is like the shining star of your defense. You paid these safeties, right? Donovan Wilson got paid. Malik Hooker got paid. Those guys remain. I'm interested to see how you feel about that. Leighton Vander Esch should return from injury, and DeMarvion Overshown should return from injury. How do you do we want to rank this, or do you want to compare that directly to this Eagles defense, where they paid a lot of guys on this defensive staff, and a lot of them are not playing to the level that you expect when you paid them? The linebacking core is just absolutely not. It has been good, or not been good. It's just been a hole. And I think one of the scary things for that team is their pass rushers. That had been the portion that had been holding up, and then towards the end of the season, even that was not able to produce, and then that just left your secondary, which had been underperforming compared to their contracts, and your middle, your field with your linebackers that had just been bad. It left them exposed.
And two of those pass rushers, as you mentioned, Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, they are out of contract. They are free agents going into the offseason. So a couple of notable free agents there. And honestly, I think the defenses are in a pretty relatively similar stance just overall. But position by position, you break it down, it's a little bit different. I think the Cowboys are better off in the secondary, because you mentioned Trayvon Diggs coming back.
Yes.
Deron Bland is who he is. We already know that. Hopefully, I think Jordan Lewis is an expiring deal as well. If you can bring him back, I feel a little bit better about your corner room. Safety-wise, Jaron Kearse, I don't think he played very well this season, but he is a free agent. That's a body you're going to have to replace. So corner-wise, I feel good. Safeties, I think you need some improvement, but I think that could help with a healthier linebacker core. If Leighton Vander Esch comes back, you're not asking guys like Marquise Bell and whatnot to play out of position, to move around and do things that they're not used to doing. So overall...
And maybe it gives you an opportunity to actually have some level of personnel that's bigger than what is constant dime. I know I saw there was like Rex Ryan got on TV and was like yelling, like, why are you in this personnel? I was like, they ain't got it for you. They just don't. Now, that does not absolve them from the way that they played, but they just don't have a bigger personnel. Anyways, continue.
And I think the development of some of their younger defensive players for the Philadelphia Eagles is going to be huge, because you didn't exactly see it from some guys. I saw Philadelphia media slamming Jordan Davis this year.
He's not been good.
Yeah, he has not been good. And
now they did just have Jalen Carter step in and then do the stuff. So
yeah,
but no, Jordan Davis was not good.
They're going to need some of these Georgia cats to start, stepping up. They took a bunch of them, and they need a few of them to hit. Luckily, they've got the rookie deals that they can say, look, we've got time on these guys. But when you just went to the Super Bowl last season, you're expecting a little bit of a quicker turnaround to kind of fill plug and play with some of these guys that you take higher end in the draft. So I think that the development of some of the defensive guys for Philadelphia, the lack thereof, is a lot more startling than for a team like Dallas that had some veteran guys that you know what you're getting out of, and then you had some guys in the younger end of the spectrum step up, like a Deron Bland. We already knew he was capable of starting on an NFL team last year. We didn't know that he was going to break NFL records this year. So I think from a longevity standpoint, I feel better about the Cowboys defense personnel-wise.
Okay. I think that's fair, but I keep looking in, obviously Stephon Gilmore meant a lot to you. He's gone, but we kind of understood what that was. Jaron Kearse, in theory, meant a lot to you, but he did not play up to the level that you had previously had. Jonathan Hankins meant a ton to you, and he's not there. And Mozzie Smith has not shown that he can step into that quite yet. Jordan Lewis, oddly enough, was very impactful for you, and I don't know if he returns either. Dorrance Armstrong as a depth piece was great. Now, look, you'll see if that just means more Sam Williams ultimately or what have you. And I know some people are mad about Sam Williams. Neville Gallimore played a decent amount for you at defensive tackle, right? Those are going to be, but those aren't the major pieces. I still like the idea that you have Micah Parsons. I lean towards where you are. It'll be interesting to see what you actually get from your linebackers when they come back. I might give this slight edge to the Cowboys, but that feels like it's close to a push.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a clear-cut advantage. It's just if I'm going to pinpoint an advantage, maybe it's just the development and the prospects of the younger players. Like you mentioned, DeMarvion Overshown didn't get to play a single snap this year. Maybe in 2024 he ends up being a bit more of a pivotal piece and a good pass rusher for you. Whatever they have planned for him, whoever is calling the defensive plays and drawing up those schemes.
All right, you want to go to offense now?
Let's do it.
All right, so you look at the Cowboys offense. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb, number one wide receiver, even though he did not show up, looked very good in this Green Bay game. Dak Prescott, look, the conversation about Dak Prescott is rampant, and it feels like you have to, to avoid that conversation right now, he has all the leverage. He's going to be the quarterback here, right? Well, even if you think you're just going to run out the clock on that contract and eat what is damn near $60 million, he's the quarterback next year, right? Okay, cool. So you have that. Zach Martin remains on. Tyron Smith is a free agent, or has the ability to be a free agent here. Tyler Biadasz also you don't have under contract. Your running back core is Deuce Vaughn and maybe Hunter Lipke when you talk about who you have under contract. You're going to need to figure something out with running back. Michael Gallup eats a good amount of your salary cap as of right now, and he seems like he's wide receiver 4.
Yeah, he really does.
You take all that and you compare that to the Eagles don't have DeAndre Swift coming back, but how do you feel about the Eagles offense? Like I said, they lost Jason Kelce, which I think is going to be huge in the organization of what they do there, but they do still have Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown.
Yeah, and obviously, if you want to just take a very easy perspective, one of their plays is essentially eliminated there with the tush push because that was a Jason Kelce special. He kind of helps make that thing possible. The ability that he has at the line of scrimmage to, indicate certain coverages and blitz pickups and whatnot, the calls he's able to make are going to be huge. Not having that, Broadus said during crosstalk, they'll slide over Cam Jurgens to center more than likely, which I believe is the smart move and a great move. I think he will be really good at center, but he's not Jason Kelce. Outside of that, skill position-wise, I think just on paper, I lean Eagles because you know who every guy is. Maybe not the quarterback after this year. You don't fully know who he is, but you talk about A.J. Brown. We know that, of course, he kind of disappeared at the end of the year this year, but he is a monster. He is a true threat. Devontae Smith was a monster yesterday even against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was the only thing that was clicking for the Philadelphia Eagles. The running game, they always seem to figure out, no matter who's back there. whether it's Kenneth Gainwell getting most of the touches or
Gainwell might as well have been your starter.
Yeah. So
the way that he played as well.
It feels like they always figure that out later. They don't really worry about it too much. I mean, Dallas Goedert, really good tight end. I think they have less question marks. I think the one that they have is bigger than any of the Cowboys' question marks in the center, Jason Kelce leaving. But I think overall, they're a little more... They can sleep easier at night with this offense, knowing who they have.
Although the one thing I will point out, right, because right now we're just talking about the tangibles of the team, like offensively, philosophically, like that offense looked like it had literally zero answers.
Yeah.
Literally zero answers.
Yeah.
And I understand in this game, your Cowboys looked like they had literally zero answers. But if I compare season to season all the way across, the Cowboys had significantly more answers and understanding what they were doing than it felt like the Eagles did, which is kind of crazy to say in this moment.
It is crazy.
How do you want to judge that? Who do you want to give the edge to?
Philosophically, yeah, I'm absolutely giving it to the Cowboys because you saw more sustained success this year.
But personnel-wise,
I slightly lean Eagles.
Okay.
And man, losing that offensive coordinator changed a lot. Losing Shane Steichen.
Well, let's talk about that part, coaching. Which honestly, who knows how long that's going to remain the case over an extended period of time. But
oh man,
Sirianni and coordinators on both sides. I guess Matt Patricia was such an odd move. Such a scramble move to at the end of the season or late in the season to just be like, we are going to go to this guy who philosophically and historically does not fit any of the personnel that you have.
Yeah.
I think that speaks to one of the issues with Nick Sirianni, and I also think with them, all that jaw jacking that he does is cool when you win him, but when you're not, that does not suit well. And then you compare that to what you have with Mike McCarthy, where it seems like the guys enjoy working for him, but he does not seem to run the culture seems to be good, but you're not getting the discipline that is necessary in these circumstances, and you just seem to not come up clutch in the postseason.
It's weird because I feel like it's polar opposite differences for me with these two head coaches. I have no faith in the coaches around Sirianni, but I know that the players love him, the culture is there. But I feel like everything systematically for Mike McCarthy is there. It's just like you said, it's a matter of showing up. I think I'm at a place where I could say it's a push.
Yeah.
With the head coaches. I mean, it'll all be different in 2 weeks when Mike Vrabel's the head coach of the Cowboys, and then I'm going to say Cowboys.
Oh, that's very leaning. We'll have that conversation. I'm sure we will.
I'm just being chaotic, but as of right now, it's a push. And I think for a couple of different reasons, they don't exactly add up to be the same issues, but I don't really have faith in either.
And this is where we get to the one thing, right? Like the front office. And Chris N on the YouTube points to the idea that they say the difference is Howie and will make moves to make the team better and that's a rarity with the Cowboys. Do you agree?
Fully agree. Howie Roseman will completely mortgage the future if he has to, just to know that I can save what I've built right now and I can do something with it. The Cowboys, it's very much we did our mid-season planning in the preseason. Our trade deadline was when we got Stephon Gilmore. Great move, not taking away from
and Brandon Cooks.
Not taking away from either of those. They were both fantastic. But, when they tell us that, it's like, well, that means you kind of set everything in stone, when you were out in Oxnard, California. It's not a great way to live. And then here's Howie, turning over every stone every minute that he's awake during the season.
Although you say that, and we started off talking about their defense and the ways in which they had a lot of signings on defense, like James Bradbury, who just seems like he's not a dude anymore, and he's there. Although you do get Avonte Maddox signed up for a long term, so it just feels like I don't know. He has a rightfully deserved image of making sure to get things done, but I think it's easy to only look at the good outside. There is some bad there, but I hear you, and I philosophically I hear what you're talking about. When Howie Roseman has won Executive of the Year for good reason, right? Because he has put together really good rosters. And so if I had to lean, I would lean that way when it comes to the organization. Even understanding Will McClay remains, they usually do a decent job in the draft, but it's hard to feel like that when you look at this Cowboys team and your first round draft pick is Mozzie Smith, who did not really splash at any point this season. You had Luke Schoonmaker, didn't really give you a lot. Overshown gets injured. That's unfortunate. Deuce Vaughn doesn't really see the field. What other draft picks am I missing? Eric Scott Jr., who wasn't on the roster.
Healthy scratch all year.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that ends up being really tough looking at it.
Yeah, and you mentioned like the James Bradberry thing. It just goes to show you how short your timetable is in the NFL, because you said he's not good anymore, and that's the key. Whenever they signed him, he fit. And the reason was because any imperfections he had could be masked by good coverage behind him, over the top with good safeties. Like C.J. Gardner-Johnson whenever he was there. It made sense. Now it's rearing its ugly head that, hey, you only got so much time for these things to work. And now James Bradberry is no better than the piece of toast that I left in the toaster too long this morning.
Burnt? Is that what you're...
Very,
okay.
very burnt.
I was like,
very burnt out. Just flavorless.
Ultimately, have we decided, like, whatever the actual answer is, it feels kind of like we're just in there, they're both down bad?
Yeah.
Feels like the answer?
Yeah. All of that to say they are both down horrendous right now. That's it.
Excellent work. Good job. Good job, team.